In this episode, I sit down with the owner and operator of Untapped Games in Providence, Rhode Island, Nate Kozlowski, to spotlight some of his success in transitioning from an online card seller to a successful brick-and-mortar store.
This is Owning Your Business, a podcast from Mantle Media and mantlestores.com about the hobby game industry, the professionals who keep it running, and your VIP access to their knowledge. And now, here's your host.
Hello and welcome to Owning Your Business, a hobby game industry podcast from Mantle Media and your source for the most knowledgeable and successful gaming retail professionals. We're continuing to bring you conversations with professionals from all corners of the hobby gaming industry, in the hopes that we can deliver the best information you need to make your successful business decisions. We want to break down some of the barriers between distributors, publishers, and retailers. We want to get to the truths behind some of our industry's biggest myths, and most importantly, we want to generate positive conversations about some of the most taboo topics. Hopefully, together, we'll be able to learn, laugh, and explore this ever-growing and always-changing world of the hobby gaming retail industry. I'll be your host and guide, Tony Cox, and today we'll be talking to Nate Kozlowski from Untapped Games. I'm lucky enough to be local to Untapped Games in Providence, and something caught my eye the first time I visited the store. Not only is it a clean, open, and inviting environment for all gamers, but in several areas of the store, they have these little boxes with slips of paper and a pencil and a little sign that reads, "Make a request. Are we missing a game, expansion, or accessory you need? Make a special request, and we'll try to get it. Just fill out a form and hand it in at the front desk." Now, I've visited countless stores up and down the East Coast, and I have never seen this kind of special order system. I thought to myself, what a simple and effective way to invite a special order, potentially creating a new customer and securing future purchases that may have otherwise gone to another store or an online retailer. I decided it would be worth it to sit down with the owner and dive into his journey into the retail game industry in the hopes that there were more nuggets of wisdom to be discovered. Stay tuned for my interview with Nate, and we'll find out together. Would you like to be part of the conversation? If so, please feel free to reach out to us. You can send your feedback, questions, or suggestions for future show topics to podcast@mantlestores.com. Previously, we've talked about advertising, getting your business story out there, and hopefully getting more potential customers into your store. Then comes the difficult part, converting those visitors into paying customers. A lot of times, people who are not associated with the tabletop gaming hobby find themselves inside a game store out of curiosity. How do you turn that curiosity into cash? What do customers see when they walk into your store? What experience are you providing to your customers and gamers, and how can you make it better? Today I'm joined by someone who has been selling trading cards and servicing gamers since 1999 and is the owner and operator of Untapped Games, which currently serves Providence, Rhode Island and surrounding areas. Welcome to the podcast, Nate Kozlowski.
Hello, it's good to be here.
So the first question I ask all of my guests is, how did you get into the gaming hobby and when did that transition into a career for you?
Well, it's been a long road, but I started playing Magic the Gathering, I think, in maybe middle school, if not early high school. I played it a lot during those years, and eventually I went to college. I didn't know as many people in college that played, but I just went more casual after college. But I still play it with my friends and everything, even though I don't play in tournaments. And then for my how that turned into business. I actually just started, back in the day, the internet wasn't new necessarily, but people would buy cards at the store and say a Birds of Paradise would be $10, and online it would be $10. But like bulk rares would all be $2, but online they'd be 50 cents. So I basically would just buy a bunch of bulk rares online, trade for better cards, and I mean that's so different than what we do now, but that's basically where I started doing it as a business, I guess you could say. I mean, it was like an allowance more than a real income.
So what year did you sort of recognize this market and then start to get into it? What year was that?
Well, I think that was about 1999, probably. Yeah. As a kid, still, I did it under my parents' name. I couldn't
really
do it. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting that it seems like you were able to see the value in those transactions early on, the value of the game. I mean, the game had only been out for 5 years at that point?
Well, yeah, about that.
Let's talk about sort of going from that point, and then when did you decide to open your own store?
So when I graduated college, I had started selling buying bulk cards. Again, I was kind of taking advantage of a disconnect between like different sales channels, where I was buying bulk from stores that couldn't sell it because most hardcore players or people playing in tournaments don't need bulk commons, but kids like them. And it's not that some shops get a lot of kids, but predominantly we were able to sell those cards more easily, I think, on eBay and online to a more wider audience. So that's basically where we started. And then over time, we can't order stuff without being a brick and mortar store. So, and of course we wanted to be a brick and mortar store. So, we basically expanded from my apartment to a small, like, I don't even know, maybe 150 square foot, 200, maybe it was 400, to 800 square foot, to 1,000 square foot, I guess 2,000 square foot, yeah. So we just kept expanding. Wow. And we added the store when we went to about 1,000 square foot space.
And what year was your first store?
I don't remember actually exactly what year it was, but it might have been around 2008.
Oh, okay, so
I think that might be when we opened the store.
So you did a lot of online stuff for almost 10 years, and then you decided to get into the brick and mortar. Was it in this area? Was it around here?
Yeah, it was in this building.
Oh, really?
So yeah, we just had it was harder for customers to find because it was inside the building. Yeah. But we just have a little store. And if somebody would come in, we would just send somebody up because didn't get that much business at first, and then we just have expanded from there. Where they used to be a very small part of our business, but now I would say the store and related online sales, because people know of us from the area, are probably most of our business.
Wow. Yeah. For those people listening, can you describe the building that we're in, the entire building?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a mill building, so there's a lot of those in this area. It's like a brick building. It's old. It used to be a mill, but now I think it used to be textile manufacturing, but now it's a bunch of small businesses like us. We're here. There's a brewery on the other side of the building. Oh, wow. There's a store that sells plants, and there's also a lot of artist studios and stuff like that. So.
And how many spaces in this building have you been in? Because you mentioned upgrading a couple times. Did you just go from that first space to this space, or were there any in between?
No, we had. The first small space was in here, then we had another space. Then over time, we've kind of taken other spaces sometimes for storage and whatnot. But finally, we moved to this main space, which I don't remember the year, but we've been here for probably several years at this point. Yeah. And this is our main space. And then we've added more spaces. We have, another space behind this one, and that's not part of the store.
Is that for storage or online sales?
Yeah, we do a lot of online sales. Yeah. Until maybe the last year or so, I'd say most of our business is online. Now most of our business is online, but like I said, a lot of it could be in-store pickup orders or people who order from the area because they've been to our store.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges and successes that you had transitioning to a brick and mortar store?
I'd say the biggest challenge with transitioning to a brick and mortar store was first of all, you need money to put up front, kind of. We already had a successful business, but if you didn't, you'd just be going in we didn't get a customer base. It took us a while, and to be fair, we already had a thing going with the online, so it wasn't super urgent that we made money right away on it. But we're happy we did, obviously, and I'm happy it worked out. Yeah. But I'd say that's like pretty challenging, building your audience and making sure people know you exist and whatnot.
What kind of marketing did you do when you first opened up?
So it's been so long I can't remember. I might be mixing some stuff up, but obviously we do like social media and stuff. We used to post on forums and stuff to tell people about our events and that kind of stuff. I think it was more like that kind of stuff back then. Social media is big now too.
Yeah. You mentioned that the online is a large component of your business, also the in-store. Can you talk a little bit about your inventory management system? I know many stores that have both an online and a physical presence, they sometimes struggle with that because they have to have two separate inventories. Is that something that you find you guys have to do, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, that is a challenge too. We do have one main inventory that integrates almost everything, but we sell on a lot of different sales channels, and that system doesn't always integrate to every sales channel. We have the same problem with shipping too. We try to use one shipping software, but everybody does things differently on different sales channels. But we use Crystal Commerce for our inventory, And I'd say it works pretty well for inventory. Like, we don't, like, you could oversell something if it sells, like, on one channel and it doesn't refresh quick enough. But I think that's a problem probably with a lot of systems.
Yeah.
There's not many options in our industry.
Right. Hopefully that'll change soon. So, we talked about it before we started, but let's dive into a little bit of the product diversity in terms of when you first opened until now. I'm assuming that when you first opened, probably heavy into Magic, because that's just what you knew at the time. How did you slowly build out those different products and the diversity in what you offer?
Yeah, actually, I'd say we were actually pretty similar in our product mix, because we sold Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh!, which are still our 3 core games, right from the start of opening the brick and mortar section. But since then, we've certainly added a lot. Like, now we do Dungeons and Dragons. We've added board games. Mm-hmm. We've added, we got minis to paint. We have Warhammer. We have, supplies and accessories. Like, that wasn't really important initially online. So I think we've really filled out our assortment to have, like, a really great selection and everything.
How do you go about promoting all the different aspects of, like, the board gaming and the card gaming? I mean, Magic kind of promotes itself in a way, but I noticed that something you guys also do is you have what's called the Magic Camp. Can you talk a little bit about that, and then maybe just some of the big 3 games that you just mentioned and the board games and D&D, like how you support those? Yeah.
So for the Magic Camp, that was an idea we had for the summer to have people who want to learn how to play Magic sign up and play, and we give them a bunch of product and whatnot. And then have lessons, and there's, like, I think 4 sessions. That kind of spawned from, we have a Pokemon club that's very successful. That's aimed towards perhaps a little younger audience, but that's actually free. That happens on Tuesdays if people are in the local area. I think it's 5 or so. I have to check the calendar, sorry. But one of my employees does it and interacts with the kids and trading cards and teaching them how to play Pokemon and everything. So, and then we have a Pokemon tournament right after that, where some of the kids can, once they've gotten comfortable, can enter the tournament. Yeah. But they don't even need to. It's actually just completely free. That's what we thought of the Magic Camp, because we just had really good success with people in the community and everything growing from Pokemon Club. So we decided to do something different for Magic, but the crowd that plays Magic's a bit different. So we had to innovate a little bit and charge a little bit because of how it's set up. Yeah.
Has it been successful since you started the Magic Camp?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't say so, but we just got it started too late. So we're hoping next year it'll be more successful.
And this is the first summer you started doing it.
Yeah, so we just...
and so some of the other games, like Yu-Gi-Oh! And the board games, D&D, like how do you support those in terms of advertising or getting customers to come back for those kind of events?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I mean, first of all, for promoting them, the hardest thing I think with setting up events is, like, when you start a new event and say you have, like, 2 people who come. Well, if you only have 2 people who come that first week, that means, like, the next week they're not going to come back probably, but then 2 new people might come. And if 4 people had come to begin with, you'd probably be good, where that's still kind of low, but depending on the event, but they might come back. So that's like a challenge. So I mean, like, we try to do a lot of promotions and stuff when we change a day or start a new event to try to make sure we get a good start, and then hopefully we can just roll off of there once people connect with each other. And we also try not to mess around. You have to establish something first, but we try not to change our schedule too much, because I feel like there's a lot of people who might take a break for months and be like, oh yeah, Untapped has Pokemon on Tuesdays, But if you change the day, then they're not going to come, or there won't be people here. For promoting events, we use a software called Hootsuite that we use for social media. I mean, because we promote our events on social media and our ads, and so, like, that's one way we get people in too. I'd say that's pretty important. We've tried advertising, like with paid advertising in the past through different channels, and that's had limited success. So really just, like, connecting with the community and building out the community. We have a Discord server and whatnot, I think, is the way to go for really almost anything, especially for the local game store.
Yeah. So. And in terms of, I feel like there has to be a bit of a persistence too. Is like, if you want something to be successful and you try it one kind of way, then maybe you try it a different kind of way. Have you run into that situation at all?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely try a lot of things and they fail. Like, we are no stranger to failing on things. But yeah, we usually pick up and try again. I'm trying to think of, like, an example. I mean, events are a good example in general. I already kind of went over that. Yeah. Like, we definitely have those times where we try something, nobody comes, or sometimes we don't know what to do exactly even. And it takes us a little while to figure it out, how to connect with people or how to get people in.
And I feel I mentioned that because I feel like there's a lot of game stores where they'll say, okay, Tuesday nights is going to be Pokemon night, and they'll put it out there, and then a couple months go by and it just doesn't quite take off, and then they're like, oh well, I guess I'm just not a Pokemon store, and then they just give up. I feel like there's a bit of persistence there where it's like, okay, well, if it's not Tuesday, try a different day or a different time or a different entry fee or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say that's true. And you definitely need to pay attention to what other stores locally are doing. Like, we try not to overlap with other stores. Like, you don't want to have two stores doing, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! On the same night,
right?
Or anything, really. So, sometimes you can't do it too well because, like, for Magic, for example, we have almost every day something.
Yeah.
When it comes to big events, same thing. You want to go for a wider radius there and try not to overlap.
Yeah.
There's definitely that. I mean, we're pretty fortunate because, like I said, we do a lot of online. So if we don't fire an event, we don't scrap the product line as long as it's selling online and doing well. If something's not selling in store and not selling online, then yeah, obviously we'll look at it. But sometimes we get surprised. Like, we have Card Fight Vanguard is a great example. We were doing well with that for years online. And then we tried to start events, and they just never took off.
Yeah.
And then suddenly everybody started playing it here, and then it kind of died out again. And now it's back really strong. So.
Wow. Yeah, and that's true too. Is like some games. I mean, maybe not Pokemon and Magic, but some of the other games they kind of ebb and flow. There's a bit of a rhythm to them, and you got to pay attention to it to capitalize on it when it's hot, right?
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, things change quickly. What's popular? I mean, we're kind of dealing in a market that deals with fads sometimes. So there's that. But, sometimes you just have to reach the right people. Like, I don't think Card Fight, when we started doing events, I don't think it got more popular. It's just like we just hit a few people who wanted to play Card Fight, and it just blossomed from there.
Yeah. I can tell by your tables and chairs you're probably a Premier store. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the experience in applying for that when that came around, and sort of how that's affected your Magic business?
Yeah, I think being a Premier store is a big positive, actually. I know some people are hesitant to invest the money, and the thing for us, though, we didn't really have to invest that much money because we already were trying basically this type of equipment you see here and tables and stuff. We've definitely changed things, but since we've been Premier, but not even like they're still the same quality.
Right.
Like, I think that's just good business in general. Like, you want your customers to feel comfortable and have a nice place to play if you're trying to have events,
Right.
There's always a push and pull. Like, you have to be profitable. You can't have luxury accommodations maybe if you're charging $5, but
yeah, and I think too, I think the in-store player experience is something that sometimes gets lost in some game stores, and so they owners don't necessarily sit down in the place of where the players are, and so they think only in terms of bottom line and how much money they have to fork out to sort of create these amenities, whereas I think personally, and tell me what you think, it makes a big difference when when a player walks into a store, sits down, and they feel like it's a nice place.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think it's really important. I'm always trying to make my store nicer. It's hard to do it sometimes because it's not even the money. It's just like we operate every day, and I don't want to shut down to change things a lot of the time. But because not just because of like I'll lose the sales. It's actually less that and more just like I don't want to mess up our customers' routines. Like if they're accustomed to coming here. That's
a really good point too. Is customer routines, and I think that's something we may not talk about often enough. Is that there's like scheduling those events on specific days, every day of the week. Every game has its day of the week. So, every week there's a Pokemon night and a Magic night or whatever. And also just people who maybe don't participate in those games that they're like, oh, it's here's my 2-week check-in to see what new board games are in or something like that, Do you take notice of that in any way? Is that something that you can register and sort of keep track of?
Well, we don't have like an official tracking system, but we do consider those things. Like if we see that we have people coming and just sitting and playing Dragon Ball, for example, we might try to start a Dragon Ball tournament on that day. So, if they're coming every week, and that's actually how a lot of events start, actually, I'd say. Like maybe not, ones that stay forever with the store,
right.
but it's just a group of people who's coming on a certain day consistently, and then it blossoms into a bigger thing.
So do you charge for play space here if it's like an off night, or?
It depends on the use of the space, but generally if you just want to come and play games and the space isn't being used for anything else, you don't have to pay. If you're like running an organized thing where it's promoted or anything, then definitely were involved, and space is prioritized, of course, for events and whatnot. But if you during the afternoon, it's not very busy. If kids want to come play, or people just want to play a game of Magic with somebody, it's all good.
How many players can you fit in this space?
I don't remember our exact count right now, but it's about 80 people.
Okay,
is
that's not too bad.
The max, I would say. We actually have more space than we used to have because we've expanded. We used to have more storage area in the back. People can't see the store here, but we've extended it. And actually, our capacity hasn't really changed because we've actually kind of increased the amount of space people have. Because we used to have those tables, and now we have. It doesn't look like much, but that's a comfortable.
These ones that we're sitting on, which are beautifully branded with your logo, that's amazing, are square. I noticed that these tables are square, but you have them in different configurations. We're sitting at one that's 4 of them put together. There's one that's 6 of them. Does this make it easier to sort of reconfigure depending on the event that you're running?
I would say having these little, that's one of the reasons we switched to the smaller tables from the bigger ones, is it makes it more flexible because we have such limited space. We're not, we're in a city-ish area, so it's kind of expensive, the space. I mean, it's not Manhattan, but so being able to utilize it well is definitely great. They're not usually in this arrangement. The reason you see them like this today, usually they're in rows. For trading card games, but tonight is Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, right.
So the pods are actually arranged. The reason some are different sizes is we have pods that we know have more people typically. With the DM, so we set up so there's more space at those pods, and then less space at the ones that have less players in their campaigns.
But that's what I mean is it's now so you reconfigure this every Wednesday for the D&D groups. Is that correct? Wow. Yeah, and I mean that's something that. I don't think I've seen much at other stores either, because like you mentioned, the rows, typically when I come in here, I've come in on a day when you've had a bunch of Magic going on and there's just rows and rows and rows of players playing. So that's really cool. That's an interesting idea. I never really thought of reducing the table size to sort of help with the capacity. That's interesting. So.
Yeah, I definitely think it's good. And actually, like I said, though, these tables, if you're playing Magic, you actually fit less people per square foot than we used to. So, but it's still pretty good. I mean, again, you kind of gain some space with the flexibility, because before you might not be able to fit slightly larger table on the end of a row, but now you can fit a smaller table and fit 2 more people.
And it goes back to what we talked about earlier, the player experience, is that you are able to reconfigure your space to have a positive play experience for the trading card tournaments and also for the D&D players. Because, it's kind of awkward. I've been to other stores where D&D players show up and there's rows of those, white folded tables, and they got to sit all awkward pointing in one direction. Whereas here you have these, wonderfully, square or rectangle tables that can fit, the one we're sitting at fits 8 people. That one over there fits at least 10, where you can have these bigger groups and they're all facing each other, and it feels more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely our goal. Even our old tables, which we still have some setups, we have 2 different types of tables in here, people that we're just be able to see. We definitely try to make it so they're flexible.
So let's talk a little bit about your board games, which is what brought me into the store. Because I'm fortunate, I live locally, and I've been here several times. I've ordered online, I've bought board games from you. It's it's one of the local stores that I go to on a regular basis. And so your board game selection is what drew me in. How has carrying board games contributed to the store's success, and is there anything specific that you do to support those sales?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd actually say board games is a pretty challenging market. I honestly, we do sales and we have that area set up, but we already have a customer base, we already have a space. But I see some stores that just sell board games. I don't even know how they stay in business, quite frankly. It just doesn't, and that's from somebody where we sell board games.
Right.
So, and we already have good traffic in our store and everything. I do think it's a pretty challenging market. We do have a rental library where people could come and test out games and play for a few dollars with their friends. And then we have a board game club we promote that specifically on Saturdays to do that. And so hopefully people could try out a game and then, buy a game as well would be great. They don't have to. I mean, we're just happy to have people playing games, honestly. For a long time when I started this store, we already did well with online. So, I mean, obviously we want to be profitable and stay in business, but I also just want to make the community stronger and, have a place for people to come. So I think that's one reason we do board games. I mean, I like some board games myself. I think just having that positive attitude and pleasant place to be and play games is a start. And then, hopefully people will come back and buy them, even though sometimes we're not honestly cheaper than Amazon.
Right.
But,
I mean, that's a whole other conversation, right? Is how to compete with online prices. I mean, thankfully, I feel like some of the publishers are doing some things to help the brick and mortar stores to be more successful in that area. Do you find that you do have to compete with that, with the online sales, or do you find that you're able to generate a player base and a customer base that does sort of support the board games?
I find with board games it's hard. I'm not really sure how much overlap or how many people come in and then don't buy a game because they go buy it on Amazon or something. I mean, we do sometimes compete with Amazon. Like sometimes our games are cheaper, so it's not like it's completely one-sided.
Right.
We always have 15% off on basically almost all of our games. We have clearance games and whatnot. I would say, yeah, it's just it is tough, like because it's more so online when you're shipping online. If you're running an online business, like it's expensive to mail a board game.
Yeah.
So like you just can't beat Amazon on that. I don't really even know how they do it. I don't think they care. Or they have their own delivery people too in a lot of places. So
the board game clubs and the rentals. Do you have success with that? Are people coming in on a regular basis for those things?
I'd say it's semi-regular. We've done demos too. I guess that's another good thing to point out. I'd say it's just, sometimes we get a family that wants to play. We've tried to set it up as a consistent event, and sometimes we've had attendance, sometimes it dies off, sometimes it comes back. But the great thing with board games, I feel like you don't get, like when you start a trading card tournament, you might have like one person come in or two people, like a couple, friends who want to enter the event. But with board games, we tend to get a lot more of like a group of friends already together. So they can just jump in. They don't need to wait for people or anything. Of course, sometimes people come on their own if they coordinate. I don't want to discourage that, but it's a lot of group.
Let's talk about one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you specifically is one thing I noticed when I was perusing your board game selection was you have these little holders that have slips and a pencil that are for special orders. So it specifically says if you don't see something on the shelf, let us know, and it's something that you'll check to see if it can be special ordered. I've been to game stores all up and down the East Coast, from Washington D.C. to Bangor, Maine, and I don't think I've ever seen this kind of special order process. In my experience, both for the game store employee and the game store customer, special orders can sometimes be problematic and time-consuming, and oftentimes can create a negative customer experience as opposed to a positive one. How did you come up with that system, and how much success are you having with that, and what has the customer experience been like?
I would say the vast majority of stuff we sell, it's pretty negligible how many people special order versus what we have here. People like to see, I think, when they come to a store, the product. But we do have I think we have pretty good success nonetheless with that system, at least compared to our past attempts at special order systems. But honestly, I'd be interested to know what some other stores do, because it is, like you said, it does take a little bit of effort. Like, it might not seem like that much, but they got to fill out the slip. We got to look and see if it's available for order. If it, then we have to order it. Like, just to do for one thing, a lot of distributors require you order a certain amount, or you have to pay shipping. Right. So if we don't have another pending order, that could be an issue. So there's definitely a lot of factors like that. So we tend to do it just as a customer service. Like, we want to make sure people could come here and get what they want, as long as it's something if we can get it. We'd like to get everybody everything they want, if we could, but we at least offer that service.
Do you find that sometimes creates repeat customers if you are able to special order something for someone?
I want to say I hope it does. I can't imagine it hurts. I think most of the people who've used that system, a lot of our customers in general are recurring customers, because they're playing at events or coming to the store or like this kind of stuff. So it's hard to say if that's why they're returning per se, but we definitely have people who have used it on a recurring basis, like the special order system.
So you find that the people who are using it over and over again?
Yeah, I don't know if everybody is, but there's definitely people who do. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That in and of itself is probably worth the time and effort, I would think.
Yeah.
Because if they didn't know that existed, then they probably wouldn't buy all those products from you. They'd go and get it somewhere else instead of coming back and saying, "Oh, can you get me this? Oh, can you get me this? Oh, can you get me this?"
Yeah, that's correct. Unfortunately, a lot of time people want something. It's because they don't make it anymore. It's hard to get or whatever. Yeah. But there's still a lot. We'll look it up and we'll tell them nobody we do business with has it.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to talk about before we finish up? Anything else about your store, your business that you're proud of, that you've any process or procedure that you had to work really hard at, and that you feel like is streamlined enough to be that proud of?
Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, I'm proud of everything we've done here. I mean, not just me, but I have several employees, so I'm proud of all the work they do too. There's people here who work harder than I do, so I really appreciate their efforts. So I'm proud that I've managed to bring together such a great team, for one thing. For another thing, I'm really proud of our store. I think we're one of the, I think it's without question, we're probably the biggest store in Rhode Island, for sure. So I'm pretty proud we've gotten here.
I think I can confirm that, because I think I've been to every store, every game store in Rhode Island. I don't think there's a bigger one.
Yeah,
so.
I honestly don't think it's close even, but we have a lot of other, online and everything. I think that's another great thing. I've met people who do either in-store or online. I'd say in-store is tough. You got to open in the right spot. You got to build the audience and everything. But I think that's much more rewarding. So I'm very proud of what we built with the store. I'm happy with how we've done with online, but I'm more happy with the store, because that just it feels more rewarding, because you're serving the community, you're interacting. Even though I'm not always out here personally, you're still helping the whole community, interacting with the customers, on a company level directly, as opposed to online where, people are just, most people are fantastic, obviously, but then, you get a lot more of the negativity online.
Right. Do you think that in today's environment that a game store your size or smaller would need to have an online component in order to survive?
I don't think so. I think when I look at why we're successful, though, I think we have really good synergy because of online and in-store. We're able to move products around. Say something's not selling in-store. Mm-hmm. A normal store, I don't know how we could discount things, but we'll try to put it where it's going to be the best to sell, where it's going to make the most, or just maybe actually sell, because sometimes we'll just pick up a product line that nobody wants in store, but it does well online. So I think that gives you really good flexibility. I think that's one of the biggest strengths of having online and in-store. But I think once you build up your store, especially if you're you don't want to open up across the street maybe from another store,
right.
But if you can find an area where there's not a store, it's actually okay even if stores are we don't consider it bad to have stores a few towns away or a couple towns away, because when they build up, a lot of our people are pretty local. So when another store builds up their base, they'll send the people, when you have a big event, those people will come to you once they've started getting engaged. So, and vice versa. There's definitely that, but
you just think it would be harder if it didn't have, less flexible if it didn't have the online.
I think that's a big strength of having online and in-store. And that's one of the reasons I think I manage that pretty well. Not to brag, but I think that's one of the reasons we are so successful. But I think you could be just as, I've met people just as successful who don't do online, I think. And I think the strengths with the in-store, online, you're never really your own boss almost. You're always answering to somebody, even when you own your own business. But online, you always if you're selling on eBay gets a cut. If you're selling on TCG Player gets a cut. You got to mail things. They take postage. You have more overhead, fixed overhead for running a store, a retail in-person store. But once you build it up, you don't have somebody else taking an extra cut.
Right.
A lot of time.
You have a much bigger margin, and you don't have to worry about all that other stuff either. You're just your customers in front of you. The transaction's simple. Yeah,
that's definitely a problem. Online, we definitely have more problems than we have with the store, because if you sell on one venue, say you just sold on TCG Player and had a store, well, that's gonna be simpler. We sell on a lot of different sales channels, so sometimes one will be down for some reason, sometimes they'll change something so it doesn't sync right to some other software, so we always are dealing with those types of issues. Not to say everything that we have system and software wise for the store works perfect either, but you definitely add more layers of complexity and problems.
All right, well, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me. I really appreciate it. If people would like to know more about Untapped Games or to follow up with you, where should they go?
They should go to untappedgames.com. You could contact us there. We have a phone number even. A lot of places don't even post phone numbers nowadays, so I think that's one of our strengths. And just come to the store too. 545 Pawtucket Ave. Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Nate. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
of keywords popped into my head while talking with Nate. Persistence and innovation. Nate said they fail at things all the time, but they pick back up and try again. Eventually, if something can be successful, it will be. That persistence can be the key to turning a failure into an innovation. Another thing that Nate said that I want to repeat is listen to your customers. And I say listen with air quotes. Obviously, listening to them is always a good idea. But what I mean is if your players are asking to use space for a certain game just for fun, there may be an opportunity there to create a regular event. Lastly, Nate said something that I don't think a lot of us want to admit. The game market is hard. It really is. It takes a lot of work, but there are opportunities there to grow a community and your bottom line. It's all about finding the processes that work for you and your business and how to keep them streamlined. That doesn't mean it will be effortless, but if you can create a rhythm as Nate did with the special order slips, it could be just the thing that takes a browser to a buyer. What were some of your takeaways? If you want to follow up with Nate or check out Untapped Games, head on over to untappedgames.com, or you can visit their location at 545 Pawtucket Avenue in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, or give them a call at 401-368-1619. We would love to hear your feedback, questions, or ideas for future episodes. Reach out to us via email at podcast@mantlestores.com. We may even feature some of your feedback on a future show. On our next episode, I'm hoping to talk with certified public accountant Noreen Avalon. We'll discuss what a store owner or business manager needs to know about taxes, expense tracking, and general tips for financial business success. You have been listening to episode 4 of Owning Your Business, a hobby game industry podcast. This episode was recorded on July 19th, 2023, and published on August 17th, 2023. Owning Your Business is produced by Mantle Media, a division of mantlestores.com. I'm your host, Tony Cox, and thank you for listening. If you found any of our conversations helpful, please consider leaving a positive review wherever you listen to the show. And be sure to share this episode with other retail professionals you might know. Until next time, be excellent to each other.